Jong Ho lies on his back. The ceiling above him is high, white, and completely empty. The vast bedroom is quiet. Not just quiet, but so quiet you can hear the blood pounding in your ears. He turns his head toward the window. Beyond the glass, in the city at night, a grid of lights, a steady, indifferent glow. None of these lights await him. He looks at them every evening, and they tell him nothing. He rolls over. The sheets are cold and perfectly ironed, like an expensive hotel where no one truly lives. He closes his eyes, but sleep doesn't come. Faces, conversations, unresolved issues loom behind his eyelids. All of these are tasks. They're important. They bring money and power. But right now, they seem like just a set of steps, like instructions for a device you've been using for ages without thinking. He opens his eyes and looks at the ceiling again. His hand automatically reaches for the bedside table. His fingers touch the cold casing of his phone. He holds the screen to his face. The bright light makes him blink. The time is 3 hours and 17 minutes. He unlocks his phone. His finger habitually opens instant messaging apps and an email. All is quiet. Everything that needs to be done is done. Everything that needs to be under control is under control. And this perfect silence makes him even more uneasy. He scrolls through his newsfeed. Politics, scandals, fashion. It all seems like a performance taking place somewhere far away. Behind thick glass. He doesn't feel a part of it. His finger pauses. In the corner of the screen is an app icon, a simple name, familiar to everyone, a dating site. He downloaded it almost as a joke, a month ago. Out of boredom, he visited once, saw the annoying greetings, and forgot about it. The thought now is simple and straightforward. Maybe just take a look, not to write, certainly not to look for someone, just to see other people, ordinary people. To find out what they write about, what they consider important to say about themselves, to look at their lives from the outside, like those very lights in the window. He clicks the icon. The app opens. He logs in using his old account. The name is Ming. The age is accurate. The city is his. There's no photo. He's an empty profile, a ghost, an observer. The screen fills with cards. The algorithm is already suggesting ideal partners. He starts scrolling, up, down. The mechanics are simple. If you like something, swipe right. If you don't, swipe left. The first one. A girl in a fancy restaurant. Perfect makeup, perfect hair, a perfect smile with 32 teeth. Her gaze is straight into the camera, provocative. He swipes left. She disappears. Second, photo taken at the gym, in front of a mirror. Toned in shape, with a calculating gaze, assessing her reflection. Left. Third, against a backdrop of palm trees. In a bright swimsuit. The pose is perfect, designed to show off all her assets. A smile like on the cover. Left. He scrolls faster. There's a girl with a kitten. There's one with a glass of wine. There's one surrounded by her friends. They're all beautiful, flawless. But in their eyes, he reads the same thing. Look at me. Appreciate me. Understand how beautiful I am. These aren't faces, but masks, carefully crafted for this market. Here, everyone is bought and sold. Even if the product is attention, he's getting bored. It's the same emptiness as his bedroom, only in a brightly colored package. He's about to exit the app, his finger reaching for the back button. And at that moment, at the very bottom of the screen, before the card should disappear, he sees another photo. He freezes, slowly returns his finger. This isn't a studio. This isn't a resort. It looks like an ordinary city embankment. Concrete, water, a hazy sunset sky, and a girl. She's not posing. She was photographed in motion, perhaps by a friend calling out to her from behind. She's just turned around, her dark hair billowing in the wind. She's holding a scoop of ice cream in one hand and a shoulder bag with the other. She's laughing. Her eyes are narrowed with laughter, her cheeks dimpled, her mouth stretched in a wide, uninhibited smile. She's wearing a simple gray sweater and jeans. No makeup, or so light it's invisible. She's not looking into a soul through the lens. She's simply enjoying the moment. Jung Ho stops breathing. He doesn't realize it. He just stares. The scrolling has stopped. The ringing in his ears has subsided. He enlarges the photograph. He examines the wrinkles around her eyes from laughter, the drop of ice cream on the rim of the cone, the faded lettering on her bag. This isn't a picture. This is a slice of life. Honest, warm, not for sale. He clicks on the card. The profile opens. Name, Amy. Age, 26. City, same. About me. I dance when I'm in a good mood. My friends say my apple pies are the best in town. I won't provide proof, so check it out for yourself. And that's it. No list of demands on a man. No list of countries she's visited. No profound quotes. Just dancing and pies. Jung Ho leans back against the pillows. The phone rests on his chest, the screen still glowing with that photograph. He stares into the darkness above him. The silence in the room has a different quality now. It doesn't oppress. It waits. A barely perceptible point of warmth has appeared in it, like a single yellow window in the dark wall of a house. He doesn't analyze. He simply feels a slight forgotten feeling. Curiosity, a real simple curiosity about another person. He picks up the phone again. His thumb hovers over the small button below the photo. Send message. He presses. He clicks. A blank text field appears. The cursor blinks, insistent and demanding. Jung Ho looks at it. What should he write? Hello. It seems too banal. Complimenting her photo? Sounds like all the others. He looks back at her profile. My friends say my apple pies are the best in town. His fingers begin typing almost on their own. He doesn't think through his sentences, doesn't strategize. He simply asks the first question that comes to mind when he looks at these words. What's the secret to your apple pies? Besides the cinnamon, he reads the message. It seems silly. Too mundane, inappropriate for this hour. He's the kind of guy who solves problems with a single phone call, and here he's asking about pies. His finger hovers over the send button. He suddenly feels a slight, almost forgotten tension, not fear, but excitement. Like before his first dive into cold water, he presses. The message flies away. The status changes to delivered, and a moment later to read. He sets the phone down on the blanket, but his gaze doesn't leave the screen. 10 seconds pass. 15. He's already mentally shrugging. Of course. She sees an empty profile, a strange question in the middle of the night, and simply ignores it. Logical. But the screen lights up. A soft, quiet sound is heard. Vibration. He grabs the phone so quickly that he surprises himself. A reply from Amy. Not just a hi or a smiley face. A full text. The secret ingredient is a pat of butter that I put on top of the filling just before baking. It melts and makes everything incredibly moist. I also cut the apples into different thicknesses to give the filling a variety of textures. Do you bake often? Jung Ho reads and rereads. He sees more than just an answer. He sees details. She shares a real little secret from her kitchen, talks about the thickness of apples. It's so normal, so far from everything that surrounds him. He starts typing again, faster this time. I don't bake. I don't even have an oven. But now I want to try a pie with butter on top. Sounds logical. He sends it, and almost immediately adds a second message, afraid the conversation will be cut short. Were you really dancing in that photo on the embankment? Or was it just the wind? The reply comes again almost instantly. No oven. That's a criticism of your profile. It needs to be corrected. There was a wind in the photo, but I was actually dancing earlier, with music in my headphones. It must have looked funny. Not funny, he types without thinking. He looked happy. He freezes, realizing what he's written. Too personal? Too direct? But the message is already gone. The reply comes within a minute, longer than the previous ones. Thank you. It's rare for someone to say that. Usually they ask where I bought the bag or who took the photo. That's how the conversation begins. They don't plan it. It flows. The topic jumps from pies to music. He learns that she plays jazz when she bakes and upbeat pop when she dances. She asks what he listens to. He writes honestly, silence. Or negotiations. She replies with a raised eyebrow emoji. He asks why she decided to write about pies in the app and not, say, about her career. She replies, because pies are fair. You can feed your friends with them. You can't put a career on a plate. He laughs out loud. The sound is unfamiliar, hoarse, in the quiet bedroom. He tells her he once had a dog when he was a child. A purebred, expensive, but boring. She tells him she feeds a stray ginger cat near her building and dreams of catching it so she can take it to the vet. She asks him what the dog's name was. He can't even remember it right away. An hour passes. Jung Ho doesn't notice the time. He sits, leaning against the headboard, the phone in his hands warm from working for so long. He's no longer lying in a waiting position. He sits, completely absorbed in the blue light of the screen, on which lines of simple living words appear. He doesn't talk about work. He talks about the book he tried to read and abandoned. She recommends another, funny and light. He says he hates the rain because it gets in the way of his work. She writes that she loves the rain because he can lounge on the couch with tea and old movies. For the first time in years, he feels that conversation isn't just an exchange of data, but something else entirely. Something like a ball game, where the important thing isn't winning, but simply maintaining the rhythm. He stops feeling the weight on his shoulders. He stops analyzing every word for hidden meaning or threat. With her, there's no subtext. There's only text, pies, dancing, a cat, rain, and he feels at ease with her, unexpectedly and amazingly easy. Like breathing, he'd forgotten it could be like this. They'd been writing for over an hour. The conversation flowed easily, like a stream. They moved on to music, then to their favorite spots in the city. He mentioned an old bookstore by the river he hadn't seen in a while. She immediately replied that it was still there, and the owner had gotten a cat who slept on the shelves of detective novels. Jung Ho looks at the message. He imagines this store, dusty beams of light, the smell of old paper, a sleepy animal on the shelf, a world that exists parallel to his, a world where there is room for random cats and no room for calculation. And he, sitting in his sterile silence upstairs, separated from it all by thick glass. A sudden sharp feeling breaks through the relaxation this conversation has given him. It's not just a desire to see each other, it's something deeper and more uncontrollable, a need to check if this other world is real. Now, before it fades away like a dream, before he, Young Ho, comes to his senses, his fingers begin typing. Before the thought has fully formed in his head, he doesn't weigh the risks. He doesn't consider the consequences. He simply follows an impulse, the first pure impulse in many, many years. I'm driving past that area right now. If I pull up to your house, will you come out? Right now? He sends a message, and only then does the absurdity and impudence of what he's written dawn on him. 3 a.m, a stranger, an empty profile. He's waiting for her to refuse, for her to get scared, for her to ask the logical questions. Who are you? Why? Are you even normal? The screen shows read. A minute passes. Silence. He's already mentally running through his options. Maybe write, just kidding, or apologize. But the screen lights up. Just one word. Yes. He reads the word several times. Simple, short, no periods, no emoticons. Yes. There's so much wild trust in it that it takes his breath away. He doesn't wait another second. He throws off the covers and gets out of bed. He acts quickly, automatically. He pulls on a pair of simple dark pants, a sweater, and a jacket. Everything is expensive, but without obvious logos, nothing flashy. He doesn't take a watch that might attract attention. He doesn't take his usual pistol from the safe by the bed. The thought of it doesn't even cross his mind. He walks out of the bedroom into the empty, bedside-lit living room. His phone is on the nightstand by the door, next to his car keys. He always takes the same keys, to an armored SUV with darkened windows. A driver is always on hand downstairs in the service apartment, but now his hand avoids those keys. He picks up others. From a simple black sedan, parked in the back of the garage and rarely used. A car for invisible trips. Today, it's perfect. He steps out into the corridor, leading to the elevator. Along the way is the door to the security room. 2 men are on duty behind it. All he has to do is knock or dial a number. They'll be ready in 30 seconds. Ho stops in front of that door. He hears the muffled sound of the television behind it. He looks at his hand. It rises of its own accord to knock. This is a rule. This is safety. This is the life he has always lived. He lowers his hand, turns and walks to the elevator. He presses the button. His heart beats faster. But not from fear, from a strange, throbbing excitement. He's breaking a rule. For the first time in years, he's doing something just for himself, and only of his own free will. The elevator descends silently into the underground garage. The door opens. Cold air, the smell of concrete and oil. His footsteps echo loudly through the vaulted ceiling. He passes rows of powerful cars and approaches a nondescript black sedan. He unlocks it. He climbs into the driver's seat. The silence in the cabin is even deeper than upstairs. He inserts the key and starts the engine. The sound is smooth, quiet. He looks at the dashboard. There's plenty of gas. He takes out his phone. The last message is still flashing on the screen. Yes, and the address. Her address. He enters it into the navigator. The program plots a route. A 20-minute drive through the city at night. Jung Ho takes a deep breath and exhales. He looks at the dark opening of the garage entrance. Beyond it, the city. Beyond it, the girl who agreed to go out with him in the middle of the night because he asked about apple pies. He turns on the headlights and smoothly pulls out of his spot. No one stops him. No one asks where or why. He just drives, alone, towards his crazy decision. The GPS leads him to a quiet residential area. Narrow streets, old trees, inexpensive cars parked along the sidewalks. Jung Ho finds the address he needs. It's an ordinary 5-story building with dark windows. He pauses behind the wheel, 50 meters from the entrance. He turns off the engine and the headlights. Silence engulfs him. He sits and watches. The front door is gray with peeling paint. A light bulb glows dimly above it. There's not a soul on the street. He takes out his phone and looks at his watch. 17 minutes have passed since she texted yes. He doesn't text, doesn't rush. He simply waits. This is a new feeling for him, passive waiting. He's not in control, but he's not afraid either. He feels strangely calm. He watches as the light goes out in one of the windows on the 4th floor. He's not sure if it's her window, but he makes a mental note. Someone has gone to bed or left. Another 10 minutes pass. He doesn't move. His hands are on the steering wheel. He thinks about his armored SUV, which always takes him around town, about the windows through which nothing can be seen, about the people who walk next to the car, unaware of who is inside. And now he sits in an ordinary car, and every passerby, if there were one, could look into his face. He feels a slight chill from the window and realizes that this is the first time in many years that he has been so exposed. Suddenly the light in the entryway comes on. His body instantly tenses, becomes collected and light. The door creaks open. A girl comes out onto the threshold. She is alone. Chung! Ho peers closer. The first thing he sees is a silhouette, short, tightly wrapped in a dark jacket. The girl stops under the light bulb and looks around. The light falls on her face, and something inside him clicks. Inconsistency. The girl in the photo had long, straight hair falling to her shoulders. This one has short, dark curls pulled back into a small, unruly ponytail. That one had a round, laughing face. This one has a more elongated face, with a sharp chin and attentive, even wary eyes. She is beautiful, but it's a different kind of beauty. Sharper, more real, and alien. He doesn't move. The girl notices his car, the only one with working lights on. The empty street. She doesn't smile. She takes a hesitant step forward, then another, and heads toward him. Jong-ho watches her approach the passenger door. She stands and looks at him through the window. He sees her face up close. Curls escape from under the hood of her jacket. Her large, dark eyes stare straight at him, unsmiling, questioningly. She taps her knuckles on the glass, quietly, as if afraid to wake the neighborhood. He presses a button, and the window rolls down. Cold air rushes into the car. They look at each other silently for a few seconds. She is the first to break the silence. You, Min? Her voice was quiet, a little lower than he expected. He nods. Yes, and you? Amy? She nods too. Yes, me. There's a pause. Jong-ho feels words spinning in his head, but they don't form a coherent sentence. His gaze involuntarily slides to the phone on the center console, where her profile is still open with the same smiling girl. Excuse me, he says finally, his voice formal, almost businesslike. I think I've made a mistake. I'm waiting for the girl. From the photo. He even points at the screen. The girl behind the door freezes. Her face becomes completely still. She lowers her eyes, then raises them to him again. There is no surprise in her gaze. There is only weary understanding. The photograph is not mine, she says simply. Jong-ho doesn't move. He looks at her, then back at the photo. His brain tries to connect the unconnected. Why? Is the only thing he can squeeze out. His voice sounds muffled. The girl, Amy, looks away. She's staring off into the darkness beyond his car. Because it doesn't work that way, she says simply. Then she takes a step closer, leaning against the half-open window. Her breath turns into a light mist in the cold air. She speaks quickly, quietly, as if afraid he'll interrupt and drive away. When I upload photos of myself, the real ones, I get messages once a month, or they say something like, "Hey, how are you?" And then they disappear forever. And I just wanted to know what it was like, just once, to get a normal message, to talk to someone who doesn't see me in a picture first, who might be interested in what's on the inside, not the outside. Silly, right? She falls silent, chews her lower lip. She continues, no longer looking at him. It's a photo of my friend. She's a model, petite, but she's beautiful, right? The kind everyone expects. She told me, Amy, give people a chance to get to know you. Let them see your face first, and then see you. I agreed. I thought maybe it would work this once. And then, you wrote about the pies. She finally looks up at him. There are no tears in them, only a tired clarity. And we just talked. You asked about the filling, about the dance. You listened. And I couldn't resist, because if I chickened out now, I'd hate myself later. And I knew you'd be surprised. I knew, but I was hoping. She trails off, shrugging. Hoping for what? She doesn't know. Jong-ho listens. His initial shock and confusion fade. He doesn't see a con artist before him. He sees a man who committed a desperate, foolish, childishly naive act, and who now stands and awaits his sentence, without excuses. He takes a deep breath, opens the door, and steps out of the car. The cold air stings his face. Now they stand facing each other. She steps back slightly, as if giving him space. I was surprised, he says slowly, choosing his words. Yes, because I was expecting someone else, the one with the photo, but not because you're ugly. Understand? She is silent, looking into his mouth, as if catching every word. You're just different, he continues. And it's not about being better or worse. You're just not who I imagined. The brain needs time to adjust. It's like if you were promised a red apple and were given a green one. It's still an apple. It might even taste better. But it's different, and your first reaction is, wait, where's the red one? You understand? Amy nods slightly, almost imperceptibly. Her gaze becomes slightly less intense. But there's another thing. His voice grows firmer. You deceived me. Even if it was for a sad reason, you left me waiting for one person. And another one came along, and you must understand that anyone in my place would have reacted the same way. Not because you're unattractive, but because they were deceived. That's a fact. There's no arguing with that. He sees her shoulders slump. She's ready to accept it, to accept her guilt. I know, she whispers. I understand, and I don't expect you to. Just thank you for listening. I'm sorry. She makes a move to turn and leave. This is the end. This is how it was supposed to end. But Young-ho doesn't finish. The words are born inside him before he can even think about them. There's one thing I don't understand, he says, and she freezes. Why are you so unsure? She turns around and looks at him with a silent question. He takes a step closer. Now there's half a meter between them. He looks straight at her sharp cheekbones, at her dark, lively eyes, at her tightly pressed lips, at the unruly curls at her temples. He doesn't see a picture. He sees a face. Real, nervous, expressive. Because that girl in the photo, she's cute. She has a cute smile. But you, he searches for the word, not embellishing, simply stating it. You're interesting. You have a face that tells a story, the kind you want to look at longer, to understand what you're thinking. You in real life, I like you even more. He doesn't say this as a compliment. He says it as a discovery, as a fact he's just established for himself. Amy freezes, as if she can't believe her ears. She looks at him, her eyes wide. Her lips part slightly. Something fragile and incredibly bright flashes in her gaze, just for a second. Pure, naked hope. Then she looks down, shyly running a hand over her face, brushing away a non-existent strand of hair. You shouldn't say that, she mutters. You just said I cheated. It's true, he agrees. And it's another truth. They don't cancel each other out. He looks at her, at the embarrassed smile that finally appears on her face. Not like the one in the photo. More restrained, but all the more real for it. So, Jung-ho says, opening the passenger door, since we're both here, in the middle of the night, maybe we should just go somewhere, just to stay warm. He starts the car, and the soft hum of the engine breaks the silence of the street. Amy silently climbs into the passenger seat and buckles herself in. She stares straight ahead, her fingers fiddling with the hem of her jacket. Jung-ho puts the car in gear, and the car moves smoothly. They drive in silence for the first few minutes. The city is different at night. Empty, wide avenues, occasional traffic lights, the flickering neon signs of closed stores. He drives leisurely, without his usual aggression. He just drives. Amy turns to the window, looking at the dark buildings passing by, at the lonely passers-by in the distance. The silence in the car is not oppressive, but thoughtful. After what's been said, words are not so necessary now. Jung-ho is the first to break the silence. Jeez. His voice is calm in the darkness. Aren't you cold? We could turn on the heater. It's fine, she replies, turning her head slightly. Thank you. A pause. Your car is quiet. He nods, though she can't see it. Yes, it's not for show. He almost said not for business, but caught himself. That's good, she says simply. And the silence falls again, but this time it's less thick. Do you do this a lot? Amy asks after a couple of blocks. She doesn't look at him, but looks at her hands. What exactly? Meet strangers at night? There's a slight, barely perceptible smile in his voice. No, just driving around like this. Alone. Just like that. He thinks for a second. The honest answer is never. Never in the last 10 years. No, he says finally. Not often. Almost never. I often take the bus at night, she says. After rehearsals. It's almost empty. And you can just sit there and not think about anything. It's like a reboot. He listens. He imagines her on an empty night bus. It's so far from his reality that it feels like a scene from a movie. Do you rehearse a lot? He asks. Yes, I'm preparing for a show. Contemporary dance. It's not like what they show on TV. It's more about feelings. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. She says this easily, without pathos. It must be difficult, he says, showing feelings with movement. No more difficult than hiding them without movement, she replies, and a thin, sharp note sounds in her voice. He glances at her. She glances out the window. He looks back at the road. What do you do? She asks. Besides browsing bakery websites at 3 a.m, he almost laughs. The question is direct, but not forceful. I work with people, he says carefully. I solve problems. I get things done. It's not a lie. It's the furthest thing from the truth. Difficult, I suppose, she notes. Sometimes, but not as difficult as baking pies with the right apple texture. Now she laughs, briefly, quietly. The sound is pleasant, lively. The car pulls onto the embankment. The river is dark, the lights of office buildings glowing on the other side. He slows down. There's nowhere to go now, just driving in circles. Are you hungry? He asks suddenly. She turns and looks at him in surprise. What do you mean? I'm asking, are you hungry? I mean, hungry. After all this stuff, I'm hungry. Amy looks at the clock on the dashboard. 4 a.m. At this time? What, you can't even bake pies? There are a couple of places in town, he says. Not fancy, just somewhere you can sit, drink coffee, have toast or an omelet. He's surprised himself that he knows this. The information has surfaced from the depths of memory, from those rare times when life was simpler. She hesitates. You can see her weighing her mind against her desire. Her mind says it's time to go home, that things have gone too far. Her desire. I couldn't resist some coffee, she finally says. To be honest, I didn't even try to sleep tonight. I was too nervous. Coffee. So coffee, says Jung Ho. I know a place by the river. It's always open. And there aren't many people there. He turns the wheel, and the car smoothly turns off the embankment into a network of narrower streets. He drives confidently, without a GPS. He knows this city, every nook and cranny, from its many, often darker sides. But now he's not taking her to a dark corner. He's taking her for coffee. And this feeling, this simple, clear intention, seems to him both the strangest and most right thing of this entire crazy evening. He parked outside a small, almost nondescript cafe with a sign that read 24 hours. Inside, it was empty, save for an elderly bartender dozing behind the counter. They sat by the window, overlooking a sleepy alley. They ordered 2 coffees and simple sandwiches. The silence here was its own, muted by the clink of dishes and the hiss of the coffee machine. When the food arrived, Amy took off her jacket, revealing a simple dark t-shirt. Jung Ho noticed how confidently she moved, even as she sat down at the yepe table, without unnecessary fuss, her back straight. So you're getting ready for the show, he said, not as a question, but as a continuation of their conversation in the car. Is it a big event? She stirred the sugar in her cup with a spoon, looking at the circles. For me, yes. For the world, no. A small stage, about 40 people in the audience. But for me, that's everything. She put the spoon down. Dance? It's my way of speaking. Sometimes words don't work, but the body does. Right now, for example, I'm all tense. She smiled, not apologetically, but as a matter of fact. Shoulders up to your ears, back arched. And on stage, when the lights and music, you open up. You become more than just a person in a t-shirt who's afraid to post a photo of themselves online. He listened, breaking off a piece of his sandwich, but didn't eat. What do you say through dance? Various things. Right now, for example, about the fear of being misunderstood, and the desire to be seen anyway. A contradictory feeling. She looked at him. Is that weird? No, Jung Ho quickly answered. It's honest. She smiled, finally taking a sip of coffee, and began to talk. About her learning process, about her first failures when her body wouldn't obey, about the moment when movement and feeling suddenly merged. She spoke not for effect, but because it was important. Her hands occasionally twirled in the air, making a line or a gesture. At these moments, her eyes lit up. Jung Ho listened, really listened. He forgot to check his phone, which lay face down on the table. He didn't glance at the door, though habit was strong. He simply looked at her and listened. Her words, her passion, her vulnerability, all of it created a dense, invisible cocoon around them. Inside, there was no room for the Korean mafia boss El and Jung Ho. There was simply a man sitting across from an interesting woman at 4 a.m, learning about a world that existed nearby, but which he had never experienced. He asked short questions. Does it hurt? What if you make a mistake at the fashion show? How do you feel afterwards? And she answered simply and figuratively, without any lofty words. He didn't even notice how he'd told her about the dog he'd had as a child. Not just there was a dog, but how he'd hidden it in his room when his father was in a bad mood, and how it'd lick his hand when he was scared. A story he hadn't remembered for years. She listened, resting her cheek on her hand, and nodded. Through the cafe window, the blackness of the night slowly began to thin. From a deep blue, it became a grayish blue. The streetlights went out one by one. The street outside took on a distinct shape. Dawn crept quietly, erasing the mystery of the night. Amy looked out the window and gasped. It's morning already. Completely. He looked too. A thin strip of peach-colored light lay along the edge of the roof of the opposite house. Yes, he said. Already. They finished their cold coffee. The moment to make a decision had arrived. The bartender began wiping down the counter, glancing at them. Jung Ho paid in cash, leaving a bill on the table that would have been enough for 10 such breakfasts. They went outside. The air was fresh, cold, and clean. Not the night air, but the morning air. Not a single star remained in the sky, only a smooth, brightening vault. They reached the car. He opened the door for her, and she got in. When he started the engine, the cabin fell silent. The awkwardness returned, but now it was the awkwardness of choosing how to end this night. He turned to her, still not turning on the radio. "Amy," he said, his voice a little hoarse from the long silence. "Can I ask you for your number? Your real one? Not for the website." She stared straight ahead at the dashboard. He watched her swallow. Then she nodded. "Yes, only if you promise you won't write about the pies. That's the end of it. Wasted." "I promise," he said, the corners of his lips twitching. "I'll ask about the rehearsals, and about the cat from the embankment." "Ask about the cat," she smiled, taking out her phone. "By the way, he has a name now. Ginger." She dictated the numbers. He punched them into his phone and called immediately. Her phone vibrated. "It's me," he said, hanging up. "Now you have my number." He drove her back. The morning light was transforming the city. The first cars appeared, and the bakery stalls opened. He drove more slowly than he had the night before. They talked briefly about how strange it was to see the city empty and then suddenly come alive, but the silence between their exchanges was no longer awkward, but tired and peaceful. He pulled up to her house. The street looked completely different now, gray, ordinary, without the mystery of the night. "Thank you," she said, unfastening her seatbelt. "For everything, even for the part where you were surprised." "Thank you," he replied sincerely. "For your honesty." She got out of the car, wrapped her jacket around herself. She took a few steps, then turned around. The morning light fell on her face, and he saw the tiredness around her eyes, but still the same lively, attentive expression. "Min," she called. He rolled down the window. "Do you really think I'm interesting? Or was that to soften the blow?" He looked at her serious eyes, searching for the truth even now. "I think you're the most real thing that's happened to me in years," he said, not looking away. "And yes, interesting." She smiled again, this time broadly, truly, and waved before turning and walking into the entryway. The door closed. Jong Ho sat in the car for another minute, staring at the locked door. Then he sighed, put the car in gear, and drove off. His phone was in his pocket, with a new number, and in his chest there was a strange, unfamiliar feeling of light heaviness, as if he'd found something he now needed to carry carefully. He drove through the awakening city, and the world around him no longer seemed like just a collection of streets and territories. There was one specific, small place within it, a place he now longed to return to. Jong Ho was driving back to his neighborhood. The morning traffic was gradually increasing, but he moved in his own private cocoon of silence. His hands were on the wheel, his eyes fixed on the road, but his thoughts were back there, in the shabby cafe by the river. He analyzed everything, as he always did. Amy's actions were stupid, naive, and dangerous. In his world, you cheated someone like that once and lost trust forever. But he didn't feel anger, he felt understanding. He himself lived behind a mask, only his mask was more complex and terrifying. His Ming on the app was as fake as that photo. The only difference was scale. This thought was unfamiliar and unsettling. He thought about her direct gaze when she confessed, about the way she talked about dancing. No one around him spoke like that, about feelings, about the fear of being misunderstood. There, they spoke of profit, power, respect. Her words were honest, and honesty is a luxury he hadn't allowed himself or seen around him in a long time. He pulled up to his house. The massive gate swung silently open. The garage was empty and cool. He turned off the engine and sat in complete silence. He should have gotten up immediately, checked his reports, given his orders for the day, but he didn't move. He stared at his phone, at the number he'd just saved. He'd broken a dozen of his own rules tonight, and now he didn't know which rule to stick to next. Should he text her now? Tell her he'd arrived? That would seem pushy. Wait a day? 2? That would be a game. And he didn't want to play with her. He just wanted to hear her talk about her little redhead one more time. That simplicity beckoned to him like a fire in the step. He picked up his phone, opened a new chat. The cursor blinked. He wasn't typing. He simply stared at the blank screen, feeling a strange emptiness in his chest that was simultaneously anxious and alive. Amy closed the apartment door behind her and leaned her back against it. Silence. She listened. The only sound was the ticking of the kitchen clock. She threw off her jacket and went into the room. A familiar shudder ran through her, the shock that follows intense emotion. She sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the wall, replaying everything in her head. His face when he saw her. Shock, suppressed disappointment. She was ready to sink into the ground. Then his words, "You're interesting." She still couldn't believe he'd said it exactly like that. Not as a beautiful phrase, but as a revelation. She stood up and walked over to the mirror. She examined her reflection. The same sharp cheekbones, dark eyes, unruly curls. Could anyone really like that more than Lisa's photo? Lisa was a doll, with perfect skin and a Hollywood smile. And she was just Amy, with expression lines around her eyes from laughing so much, with a scar on her chin from a childhood fall. He took her number, but that doesn't mean anything. Politeness. He could simply not want to offend her further. He'll go off to his big world. He clearly has money. You can tell even by his car and clothes, and forget about it. He probably already regrets this whole one-night stand. She caught herself thinking this and frowned angrily. "Enough," she said out loud to the empty apartment. He said, "Interesting. Stop humiliating yourself." She picked up her phone. New contact. Min. No last name, no information. Like a ghost. She opened the chat. The last message was his missed call. The chat history in the app hadn't transferred. It was a blank page. She put the phone on the nightstand, but kept it in her sight. She was afraid. Afraid the screen would never light up. Afraid it would light up and say politely, "It was nice, but..." That night had been the boldest and most terrifying act of her life. And now the time for retribution had arrived. A quiet anticipation that burned within her. She lay on the bed, staring at the ceiling. She repeated his last phrase to herself like a mantra. The real thing. Real. Maybe that was all she needed to hear. Even if he never wrote again. The next day, at exactly 3 o'clock in the afternoon, his number lights up on her phone screen. Amy sits on the floor, sorting through old CDs, and her heart stops. She looks at 2 words. Incoming call. "Min." She takes a deep breath and presses answer. "Hello? Amy? It's Min." His voice on the phone is clearer than it was last night. More collected, but there's no coldness in it. "Hi," she says, her own voice sounding unnaturally high. "I wasn't sure you'd call." "I said I'd call," he replies simply. "Are you free now? Are you free? Now?" "Yes, if you want. We can meet in daylight." "No surprises on my part." He pauses slightly. "I can drive to your park, the one by the river. We can just take a walk." Amy looks at her confused hands, covered in dust. Day, park, all fair and square. "Yes," she says quickly. "Go ahead. In half an hour?" "In half an hour," he confirms. At the main entrance, she drops everything, quickly changes into simple jeans and a sweater, and quickly combs her hair. She doesn't wear makeup. Today, everything must be true. He's already waiting when she approaches. He's standing next to the same black sedan, but today he's dressed in simple dark pants and a leather jacket without any identifying marks. He sees her, and it's not a smile that crosses his face, but rather an expression of slight, visible relief. "Hello?" he says. "Hello." They begin walking along the park path. It's a cold, sunny day. Children are roller skating, and someone is walking their dogs. "How are you?" he asks. "Fine. Didn't get much sleep, of course. And you?" "Me too. But for a different reason. I had to work early." They talk about simple things, about the weather, about how the park has changed in recent years. He doesn't take her hand. He doesn't try to touch her. He simply walks beside her, and his presence seems surprisingly calm and steady to her. She shows him the very spot on the embankment where that photo was taken. Now it's windy and empty. "I brought you something," he says suddenly, stopping. He takes a small paper bag out of his jacket pocket. "Not pie. I promised not to bring that up. It's for your cat, Ginger." She opens the bag. Inside is a small package of expensive cat food, soft treats, and a new, brightly colored mouse toy. "Did you go to the pet store?" She looks at him in surprise. "On the way," he shrugs. "I figured since it's my fault you didn't get enough sleep last night, I might as well at least give the cat a treat." She laughs. It's a laugh of relief and a new, warm joy. They sit down on the cold bench, and she tells him about the rehearsal this morning, how nothing worked out because she was thinking about their conversation. He listens, nodding. Then he starts telling his story, very carefully. He says he runs a family business, very conservative, very strict, that he must always control himself, his words, even his emotions, that his life is a set of rules and obligations. He doesn't lie, but he doesn't tell the whole truth either. He calls things by other names. Negotiations instead of showdowns, questions of loyalty instead of threats, responsibility for people instead of power. Amy listens carefully, She sees how carefully he chooses his words, how his face becomes more closed when he talks about work. It sounds heavy, she says softly, like you're always in armor. He looks at her, and something like surprise flickers in his eyes. Yes, exactly, in armor. She asks if he likes it. He's silent for a long moment, looking out at the water. It doesn't matter. This is my life. I accepted it years ago. Then he adds more quietly, but sometimes the armor starts to weigh on me. They are silent. Something important hangs between them, unspoken. Why did you tell me this? She finally asks. About the armor? Because I want you to know that there's more to me than just that, he says honestly, that I have my own complications, bigger than just the photos I see online. And if we continue this conversation, you need to understand that. She feels a chill down her spine, but not from fear, from anticipation. What do you mean, difficulties? I can't talk about the details of the job. It's dangerous. Not for me, for those who know, but I want to be as honest with you as I can, and that means one day I'll have to tell you the whole truth, even the ones you might not want to hear. He says this calmly, looking her straight in the eyes. There's no challenge in his gaze, only heaviness and determination. Amy looks at him, at this strange, reserved man who bought food for a stray cat and talks to her about armor. She thinks of his quiet strength, the careful way he moves through the world. She remembers how he got out of the car at night, alone, without security. She realized that, to speak face to face with the liar. She puts it all together in her mind. The picture doesn't add up to an image of an office worker. You're not just a businessman, are you? She asks in a whisper. He doesn't look away. My business works with people who don't go to offices, and the rules there are different, tougher. Is it dangerous? Sometimes, yes. For you? For everyone around me. She leans back against the bench. The sun shines on her face. She feels two emotions warring within her. The instinct for self-preservation that whispers, run, and something else, stronger, trust in the man who just gave her a choice before she even had a chance to demand anything. So what now? She asks. Now it's up to you, he says. I can't promise you an easy life. I can't promise that everything will be safe and predictable. All I can promise is that I won't lie to you from now on, and that you've become very important to me. So important that these rules of my life, my armor, they're getting in the way now, because I want to see you, and I want you to see me. The real me. He pronounces this last word with such difficulty, as if he were tearing off his own skin. Amy looks at the river, at the water that flows without knowing the rules. She thinks about her fear of being rejected, about his fear of being recognized. They were both hiding. In different ways, but they were hiding. She turns to face him. Min, is that your real name? He shakes his head slowly. No, my name is Jung Ho Lee. Jung Ho. She tests the name. Jung Ho. It sounds firm, real. What do you mean important? Her voice trembles, but she doesn't turn away. It means that if you say no and leave now, I'll understand, but I'll regret it every day. And if you say yes, I'll make sure my truth never hurts you. And I'll start by never hiding my face from you again, ever. He's finished. He's said all he can. He sits and waits. His fate, for the first time in years, lies not in his hands, but in the hands of a fragile girl in a simple sweater, who looks at him with eyes full of thought and feeling. He's prepared for her refusal. He's almost certain of it. It would be reasonable, right? Amy reaches out, not to his hand. She touches his cheek with the back of her fingers. A light, barely perceptible touch. He freezes. Your armor, she says quietly. It's very cold, Jung Ho. Then she removes her hand, stands, and looks down at him. I don't know what it means to be with you. It's scary, but my fear of being unworthy and hiding behind someone else's photo, it was stronger than the fear for my safety, because being alone with my truth was unbearable. She pauses. You did the same thing now, left alone with your truth in front of me. And that's honest. She takes his hand and gently pulls him to his feet. So yes, I agree, on your terms, with the truth and with all the complications. But I have a condition too. What? His voice is muffled. You will never disappear without telling me again, even if it's dangerous, even if it's hard. One message. It's okay, or I can't right now. No silence. I've already experienced silence. It's worse than any truth. Jung Ho looks at her hand, which is in his. He squeezes it, not hard, but firmly. I promise, he says. No silence. They stand like this in the middle of the park, among the bare trees in the winter sun, holding hands. He has no plan, no strategy for keeping her safe. There is only this decision, to be honest with her. And this decision seems to him at once the most reckless and the most correct of his entire life. His armor has cracked, and light has filtered through the crack. He is afraid, but he does not let go of her hand. Jung Ho and Amy stand in the park, holding hands, and the world around them seems to stand still. This moment, not a hug, not a kiss, but a simple clasp of hands, seems more important to them both than any vow. He broke his most important rule. He opened up. She made the riskiest decision of her life. She agreed to enter the shadows. Amy lets go first, not because she wants to pull away, but because she needs to breathe. The air is cold and fresh. I have to go to rehearsal, she says, looking at him. Her voice is no longer trembling. In 2 hours. I'll drive you, he offers immediately. No, she shakes her head. I'll take the bus. I need to think alone. This isn't a refusal, Young-ho. It's just that I need to get used to it, to your name, to what you said. He understands. Too much information in one day. He nods. Okay, but will you call when you get here? Just so I know. I'll call, she promises. She takes a step back, then, as if remembering, something quickly approaches, stands on tiptoe, and kisses him on the cheek, lightly, almost weightlessly. Thank you for the truth. Then she turns and walks away quickly, without looking back. He watches her until she disappears around the corner. The cheek where her lips touched feels like it's on fire. The next few days become a new, strange dance for them. They communicate, but differently. Now his messages lack the false lightness of Mina. There's Jong-ho's discreet concern. Are you home? How was rehearsal? Don't forget to eat. He doesn't text much, but he does text regularly. As promised, no silence, Amy replies. She talks about her progress in dancing, about how Rijik finally let her pet him. She senses his wariness, even through the text. He's like a man accustomed to walking through a minefield, and now steps carefully on smooth asphalt, still expecting an explosion. He asks if he can meet. She suggests coming to her open workshop in a small studio. There will be people there, and light, and everything will be honest, she writes. For him, a public space is a risk, but he agrees. The studio turns out to be a small hall with mirrors. About 20 people arrive, mostly the same young dancers. Jong-ho stands against the wall, dressed in dark clothes, trying to remain inconspicuous. He sees her in the center of the room. It's a different Amy. Collected, focused, speaking to the students softly but confidently, she demonstrates a combination of movements. Her body speaks a language of grace and strength that is foreign to him, yet endlessly captivating. He watches her transform, her fear and uncertainty dissolve in the movement. She catches his gaze in the mirror and pauses for a split second, then smiles faintly and continues. After the masterclass, she approaches him, her eyes sparkling, a light sweat beading on her temples. So how was it? She asks, like a child seeking praise. I don't know much about this, he says honestly, but the way you move, it's beautiful, and it looks so natural. For her, this simple phrase means more than any enthusiastic praise, because she sees that he's not flattering. He's observing and stating a fact. They go outside. Next to his car, in the shadows, there is another car, a dark SUV. Next to it are 2 men in simple but expensive clothes. They do not look in their direction, but their postures are tense. Young-ho stops. His face turns stony. He makes a barely perceptible hand signal to Amy. Stop here. He approaches the men. He speaks to them quietly, sharply. One of the men looks over his shoulder at Amy, then nods. Young-ho returns. My colleagues, he explains dryly. They followed me to keep me safe. To keep me safe or you? Amy asks, feeling an ice ball in her stomach. In this case, me. But their presence near you makes you dangerous too. That's what I was talking about. There is rage and frustration in his eyes. Not at her, at the situation, at his lack of freedom. Will they follow us? No, I sent them. But now they know your face, and it's inevitable. He clenches his fists. I didn't want this. Not so soon. Amy gets into his car silently. There's fear, but there's also anger. Not at him, at these circumstances that are robbing them of their simplicity. So it's always going to be like this? She asks quietly. Not always. I'll find a way. Give me time. He drives her home. This time, they don't talk about his case. They talk about the music for her performance. But the shadow of that meeting hangs between them. A week passes. They see each other a few more times, always in public places, cafes, parks, an exhibition. He always arrives alone, but she notices details now. Sometimes she sees the same SUV in the distance. Sometimes a man, too indifferently reading a newspaper on a nearby bench. The world of Young-ho is an invisibly present presence. He tries to shield her from it. He doesn't talk about work. He doesn't answer calls in her presence. But one day, as they sat in a cafe, his phone vibrated with a peculiar, alarming series of beeps. His face became completely inscrutable. He apologized, walked away, and spoke for no more than a minute. When he returned, he was just as calm, but she felt the atmosphere around him change, as if a cold air had thickened around him. Did something happen? She asked cautiously. It was a work matter, he replied. Nothing that concerns you. But then, Seeing her look, he added, a conflict of interest. We resolved it peacefully. She realized that world had a different meaning in his vocabulary. She didn't ask further. One evening, as he was walking her home, she stopped at the entrance. Young-ho, I want to ask you one thing. Maybe it's stupid. Speak. My show. It's the day after tomorrow. I'll have a small solo part. I want you to come, not as a hidden observer against the wall, but simply as a spectator, so you can see how I live, the present. And I want to know that you're there, that you're watching. He is silent. A public event. A hall. Many people. Risk. I will be there, he says firmly. I will find a way. Thank you, she whispers. The night before the show, Jong-ho isn't sleeping. He's sitting in his office, a dossier in front of him, not on the enemy, but on a small independent theater studio, a floor plan, an event schedule, information about the organizers. He studies everything as if he were planning an operation. He calls his right-hand man, So-min. I'll be here tomorrow evening, he says, sending the address. I need complete cleanliness. No presence from us inside. No attention from the outside. You simply secure the perimeter. No strangers are to so much as sneeze near this building. And I don't want to see a single familiar face within a 2-block radius. I'll be alone. This is important. So-min tries to object, citing the risks. Young-ho interrupts him in an icy tone he hasn't heard in a long time. This isn't a discussion. This is an order. If I spot any of our guys, there will be consequences for you. Understood? Understood, boss. Chung-ho hangs up. He looks at the photo of the theater. He has to give her this evening. Clean, without shadows. He has to. It's the evening of the show. Amy is backstage. Her heart is pounding, and not just from the stage. She peers through a crack in the curtain. The hall is almost full, and there, in the third row, almost in the center, sits he, Young-ho, in a dark sweater, without an entourage. He simply sits and waits. Their eyes meet for a second. He doesn't smile. He nods slowly, almost imperceptibly. And that's enough. Her entrance. The music is unsettling, pulsating. The light is harsh, plucking from the darkness. She dances her fear. Fear of being the wrong one. Fear of being exposed. Fear of the mask growing onto her face. She turns it into movement. Abrupt stops. Contractions, abrupt leaps toward the light, and backsliding into the shadows. She dances for him, too, so that he will see, understand. Jong-ho watches, unblinking. He sees more than just a dance. He sees a confession. He sees the same girl who came to him that night, knowing her deception would be revealed. He sees her pain, her hope, her strength. He, a man far removed from art, senses this instinctively. His jaw is clenched. He applauds as the audience erupts in applause. Sincerely, powerfully. After the performance, when the audience has left, he waits for her at the green room exit. She emerges, still in her stage leotard with a robe thrown over it. Her face glows. Did you see? Yes. It was powerful. You were amazing. She throws herself into his arms, and after a moment's hesitation, he embraces her tightly, lifting her slightly off the ground. At that moment, other dancers pass by and stare in surprise. To them, he's just a stern, handsome guy. Shall we go celebrate? He asks, letting her go. Yes, just not to a cafe. Will you buy some wine? And we'll go to your place? She looks at him, testing his reaction. Bring her to the penthouse? To your fortress? This is a new level, the last bastion. Yes, he says. To me, his apartment strikes her not with luxury, but with emptiness. Everything is expensive, impeccable, but impersonal. Like a hotel room. Not a single photograph, not a single knick-knack. God, it's so clean, she says, taking off her shoes. Empty, he corrects, pouring wine. There's no life here. Where are your things? Souvenirs? Books? I don't have things. I have possessions. And then there are things that are kept in a safe place. They sit on the huge sofa by the panoramic window. They drink wine. She recounts every moment of the evening. He listens. Then there is a pause. Thank you for coming alone, she says. I didn't see anyone. I promised. What will happen tomorrow, Young-ho? Her question hangs in the air. Tomorrow I will wake up and you will text me good morning. Then you will have the day off. And I will have meetings. In the evening, if you want, we will see each other. And so, until you change your mind. And if I don't change my mind, then one day, I will have to show you the other side of my life. Not the one in the dark sweater in the third row, but the one that resolves those very conflicts of interest. And you might not like it. I have already seen this at. I saw your colleagues, and I saw how you spoke to them. I'm not a child. It's precisely because you're not a child that you must understand the full scope of this. I can't just walk away. I have obligations, people who depend on me, and enemies who who would be happy if I showed weakness. My life is a labyrinth, and some of its corridors are very dark. And what's at the end of the labyrinth? She asks, leaning her shoulder against his. I used to think that at the end, there was loneliness at the top. Now, I don't know. Now, perhaps there is a door at the end of the labyrinth, but to get there, you have to go through the darkness. And the question is, will you want to walk beside me? She doesn't answer right away. She sips her wine and looks at the city lights. You know, in dance, there's this thing called a support duet. One partner falls, trusting the other to catch them. Even if the move looks dangerous, it's about blind trust. I don't know all your corridors, but I'm willing to trust you as long as you lead. As long as you don't let me fall where I can't get up on my own, and that you don't become just another dark corridor for me. He takes her hand, intertwining his fingers with hers. I will be the one to lead you into the light, I swear it. Even if I have to tear down half the labyrinth to do it. They sit like this until late into the night. They talk no longer about the past or their fears, but about the future. About her desire to open her own small studio. About how he could perhaps invest in a legitimate business. Not as a boss, but as a private individual. They dream out loud, knowing that these dreams could be thwarted. Towards morning, she falls asleep on his shoulder. He carefully carries her into the bedroom and covers her with a blanket. He stands and looks at her sleeping, at this fragile, courageous creature who has burst into his fortified life. He goes into the living room, grabs his spare phone, the clean one, and makes one call. So Min. On Monday, we'll begin the process of legalizing Southern assets, and we're looking for investment options in small businesses, particularly in the cultural sector. Yes, I'm fine. It's just, I've got an incentive to reconsider everything. He hangs up. He returns to the bedroom and lies down next to her, not touching her so as not to wake her. He stares at the ceiling, and for the first time in years, his thoughts aren't about control or defense or power. They're about a simple room, perhaps not so empty and large, about the smell of apple pie, about laughter, about waking up every morning and seeing that real, interesting face on the pillow next to him. The path will be difficult. The enemy never sleeps. His world will not forgive weakness. But he has made a choice. She is more important than the rules. And for the sake of watching the sparkle in her eyes when she dances, he is ready to remake his universe, brick by brick. Starting tomorrow morning, he lies and listens to her even breathing next to him. It's the loudest sound in his quiet apartment. He's afraid to move, lest he frighten this fragile moment. His phone is on the floor, turned off. Protocol violation number 1. He looks at Amy. Her face in the dim light seems very young and vulnerable. It's precisely because of this vulnerability that he must now become stronger than ever, but differently. Not a wall that isolates, but a shield that protects only her. His thoughts race. He makes plans, not ones that involve force and pressure, but others. How to gradually, without risking his people, emerge from the darkest of affairs. How to create a safe space for her. He thinks about her small studio. Maybe he should buy that building on a quiet street she mentioned. Through proxies, of course, so that it will be waiting for her when she's ready. It's strange building a future. It's always been an endless, arduous Groundhog Day. Now there's a dot on the horizon. Not power, not control, but a simple life. The chance to wake up like this. Amy sighs in her sleep and turns toward him. Her hand unconsciously rests on his chest. He freezes. The touch burns through the fabric of his t-shirt. He carefully places his hand on top of hers, holds it. The first, faintest light begins to creep through the windows. The night is retreating. Morning will soon come, and everything will be difficult. He will have difficult conversations with people who will not understand him. He will have to balance on a knife edge, hiding what is most important. But in this hour, in silence, under the weight of her hand on his heart, he knows one thing. He will not retreat. If before he fought for territory and influence, now he will fight for this quiet breath beside him, for the right to simply be himself. Jong-ho, next to her. He closes his eyes. For the first time in years, he falls asleep, not because his body shuts down from exhaustion, but because he feels peace. Not the security bought by vigilance and fear, but peace. Fragile, like the first ray of light in a window, and real.